So I had an idea for a new project. I've been doing large scale things and I've been doing small scale things and book nooks and large tables, and I wanted to do a diorama. I've been really entranced with dioramas that I've seen online that are in the 1/35th scale, which is not a scale that I've ever worked in before other than to do the occasional tank. But I've never worked in the models, the figures that come in 1/35th scale, because they're not a typical war game scale. They're a modeling scale. And so I decided that I wanted to do the Battle of Stalingrad. Just as a small diorama, this is 14 inches by 14 inches. I made the base out of 2-inch XPS foam. I painted up the tank, I painted up the models. I'll show you a little bit about the tank in a minute. And then right there in the center, we've got a big statue of Lenin, which I ordered on Amazon, which I'm sure got me put on a list as somebody ordered a statue of Lenin to put on his desk. So there we have that. But mapping out where I want my table to be, the Battle of Stalingrad was a very brutal battle that saw a lot of death and destruction and a lot of damage to everything, to property. Here's the tank. There's a new technique that I tried on the tank where I painted it and then sprayed it with hairspray and then whitewashed it and then scrubbed it with a toothbrush, and it scrubbed off the whitewash and it left the tank exposed, the underneath of the tank exposed, and I really like the look of that. So I've basically, the scene that we're setting here is going to be a destroyed kind of city center where we've obviously got the statue of Lenin, and there's going to be a couple of buildings that are broken, but there's going to be a tank that is destroyed in the center. It is going to have hit a large landmine, and so there is going to be a major crater in the earth, and it is going to be a burned out husk of a tank, and everyone is going to be fighting around it. Battle of Stalingrad, of course, was between the Germans and the Soviets in 1942, 1943. And it was just, the whole city was in ruins. People were fighting from room to room and from basement to basement, and I have always been fascinated by Stalingrad. It's actually the thing that got me into writing in the first place, is I was so interested in this one story that I read of some soldiers who were so scared of snipers that they would burrow from basement to basement so that they would never have to go outside. And that idea intrigued me so much that it's what inspired me to write my first book. So that's how I got into writing, is through the Battle of Stalingrad and studying it as a history major in college. But just building the ruins here, again, this is XPS foam, doing it kind of by eye. We're building rubble here, as you'll see in the rest of this. There's not a lot of science to it. It's going to look very devastated and going to be bombed out. And I mean, 1.5 million people died in Stalingrad, which is, by comparison, about 300,000 Americans died in all of World War II combined. But 1 million Soviets died in Stalingrad, and 500,000 Germans died in Stalingrad in just this grueling year-long war that would not let up. And it was pretty brutal, and so I wanted to put it. It took place, over the course of a year, but it's very known for being in the winter, and so I wanted it to be in the winter, and so this is going to be a winter scene. Now I'm cutting floorboards. I cut a lot of rubble for this project. Because so much of it was just bombed out and devastated. And we're going to line the floorboards of the building, push those off to the side, bring it in, and now lay the floorboards of the building. and we'll speed this up so you don't have to watch all of the floorboards going in. But this is just kind of the process of going through it. I really enjoy this little diorama. I mean, it flexed all of my hobby muscles and things that I hadn't done before. I haven't worked with snow before. I hadn't worked with this texture paste that I'm using right now. I'm plastering the walls. So I carved bricks into the XPS foam so they look like brick walls, but then I covered part of them with plaster. It's woodland scenic flex paste, and so it looks like they are plastered walls and some of the bricks are showing through. So now I've got it painted, base painted. I painted, there's the large crater and the muddy lead up to it. We've got the cobblestone street that is painted in, and then we painted obviously the wood steps, and now what I'm doing is I'm painting in that plaster, base coating it, and it's going to get a dry brush of a little lighter color here in a minute, but base coating the plaster. And you can see where the bricks are exposed. So now we've got that done, and now we're going to be putting in sandbags. I wanted a sandbag emplacement. Putting these in. Something for someone to hide behind. Everything was so chaotic in the war that there really was no front. Everyone was just kind of in a jumble. One story from Stalingrad that was highlighted if you've ever seen the movie Enemy at the Gates. But the Soviets had more men than they had rifles. And so they would send in the soldiers with one rifle for every 2 men. And the thought was just that as soon as the guy next to you died, then you would pick up his rifle and then you would fight with his rifle. And if you survived long enough, you would be able to fight. What I'm doing here is I'm shaking up little bricks of XPS foam in a Tupperware full of rocks to give them a texture. This is going to be for all of the debris that is all over. I'm going to split this debris into 2 separate things and give it 2 different coats of paint. One a brown, that plaster color, and then one a gray, the brick color. That's what I'm doing here is the gray. A couple different flavors of paint. Mix it all up. Quickest way to paint bricks is just by doing it in a bowl. Now we're going to start applying the bricks. Well, first off, we're going to apply the mud. This is texture paste that I wanted to use. I really had wanted to have the tank treads leave tread marks in the mud. And I tried it with the flex paste and it didn't work. And I tried it with this mud here and it still didn't work. And so I'm going to need to find something in the future if I want to leave tank treads in stuff. Basically, everything was too sticky, and when I would put down the tank tread, you'll see here in a minute, I pull the tank tread up, and it just it doesn't leave a mark. Here's the tread, lay it down, and it doesn't leave a mark. It just makes kind of a sticky mess. So now the tank had been assembled, but I had held off putting on the treads because I wanted one of the treads to come off because some of the wheels of the tank had broken in that mine that had gone off. So I'm putting the full tread on that side, but on the other side I'm going to be putting on half the tread, breaking off some of the wheels. Not very scientific, just snapping them off. And now placing on the tread that goes on this side. This is going to be the tread that's broken, and it's going to be kind of mangled, and that's what destroyed the tank. Holding it to let the paint dry. Gluing in the treads. Trimming off the treads so that they're not too long. And I bunch up the treads so that it gets kind of tucked in. It looks like the tank tried to drive and got tangled in its tread. And now I'm just fixing the top of the tank that had been off because I was waiting for the treads to go on. And now a final coat of mud to seal in everything and make it look like that tank has been driving through the mud for a while. Cover up some of those treads. I'm really pretty pleased with how this is coming along. Gluing the tank in place. Putting some paint, some texture. And I really like how this is going. Now we're putting debris in. You can see I've added debris in quite a few places, but now we're adding a lot of debris to the foreground. I've already kind of crumbled the buildings in. You can see off to the left there by the broken wagon. And now it's time for snow. And sprinkling the snow on. I sprayed everything down with Scenic Cement from Woodland Scenic, and now I'm sprinkling on the snow, and this is when kind of the magic happens. I really like this because it brings everything together. It really makes it into a snow scene, and pretty happy with how this worked. And then now, once we get on enough snow, satisfied with the snow, you can't have enough snow, then we're going to affix it in place with more Scenic Cement, just dribbling it on because we don't want to mess up the texture of the snow too much, but you dribble this on and then it becomes hard as a rock, and that snow will never go anywhere. And pretty soon we're going to see the finished product. And here it is. These are the soldiers now in place. There are Russians coming up one side. They don't know that the Germans are on the other side, but they're wary. Coming up through the rubble. Their fearless leader is up ahead of them, kind of urging them on. Right there, saying, "Come on, guys, let's run." And little does he know that over on the other side of the tank and on the debris is a squad of Germans. I really like these models. They had a lot of interesting poses that you don't get in wargame models. The people who are climbing, the people who are running, holding their guns. It was fun to paint them. It was fun to paint bigger miniatures also. The 1/35th scale is so much different than the 1/56 scale, which is what most wargame miniatures are, the 28mm miniatures. Behind the sandbag emplacement, they're hiding with their gun out. And our poor Russian is about to get shot. We'll see him here in a minute. He looks like he's about to get nailed right in the chest when he's urging his men to come along. But I really think this turned out well. Totally different from what I've done before. Haven't done a diorama. Haven't ever... I broke Stalin in half with a hammer and a chisel, so take that, communism. But you can see the debris. It looks really good. That snow just brings everything together, and all of the colors mix, and it really makes the scene. And like I said, the poses of the miniatures look so good. So anyway, thanks for watching this video. Thanks for sticking with me. If you like this, give it a like, and I'd love to hear your comments on it. And subscribe if you haven't already. And thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.